A brand new card called the Void Spell is coming to Clash Royale. The Void Spell is a 3 elixir epic card. You guys can see from this demo video that is very good against single target units. However, the Void Spell is bad against swarms. So you guys can see against the barbarians here, it struggles and barely does any damage to them. Let's take a look at the stats, and these are the stats at level 11. You guys can see it has 3 different damage tiers. Tier 1 is the high damage. If it's hitting 1 unit, it does very high damage, being able to fully counter a mini P.E.K.K.A, which is very impressive. Tier 2 is medium damage. If there are 2 to 4 units inside the void, it will then do this tier of damage. A good example of this is against the goblins. There are 4 goblins, and you can see it takes the voids 2 hits to take them out. We then have the third and final tier, and this is the low damage. If there are 5 or more enemies inside your void, it's going to do this low damage. So how do you use this card effectively? Well, the best way to use this card is against single target units. I'm going to give you guys a situation. A giant is going towards the enemy. My enemy places a defensive building, and before we were always told to hit the tower and the building. With the void spell though, you do not want to do this. Because you are hitting the defensive building and the tower, that counts as 2 targets, so you're doing the tier 2 amount of damage, the medium damage. Instead, this exact same situation, you want to just hit the building. By just hitting the building, you are doing the tier 1 damage, and you're actually able to take out the defensive building, which is very good for you, really helping out your push. However, you need to be careful because you can actually counterplay this spell. This is one of those rare times where a spell can actually be countered, which I think is fantastic. Again, the exact same situation. A giant is going towards my enemy, they play a defensive building. I void just the building, so I'm doing the tier 1 damage. However, my opponent plays a goblin gang in the void. Because there are now a lot of units inside the void, it goes from tier 1 to tier 3. And you can see it actually keeps the opponent's defensive building alive. This is just one of many examples of how you can counter this spell and outplay your opponent. This gets me very excited because it's very rare you can counterplay a spell, and this is what's going to separate a good void player from a great void player, knowing these different mechanics and interactions. Very quickly, I want to say I really hope you guys enjoy the sneak peek content. If you do, make sure to come over to the shop and enter code OOfro. It really supports the channel and allows me to keep making the sneak peek content. But let's hop into some interactions with this brand new void spell. So the void spell can actually fully counter the mortar, giving you a positive 1 elixir trade. Again, because the mortar is a single unit, you're able to take it out fully. Against a Skarmy, even though there are 5 or more enemies, the skeletons just have such little health that the void's able to take care of all the skeletons. Very interestingly, against a skeleton bow, the void is able to not only counter the bow, but also counter all the skeletons. Against a graveyard, I think is very interesting because the void actually switches the amount of damage it does as the skeletons build up, but does a very good job at protecting your tower against the graveyard, taking barely any damage. Against a minion horde, it does okay. A lot of the minions do survive, but they are low on health, and overall my opinion of this card is it's a very cool card. I like it. It's very similar to the poison spell, however the void is cheaper. Decks that I think the void spell are going to work well in is decks like Splashard, just replacing the poison spell, obviously making your cycle cheaper. In terms of balance, this card is actually very balanced. Like I said, because you can outplay it, that's what makes it balanced. It all relies on your skill and your game knowledge, and I really like that. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, and above my head is the void versus the poison to see which is better.